The shouting had already started by the time the first phone came up to record. "So, I'm asking you one more time," the sales manager said, each word clipped in loud enough for the whole showroom to hear. "Step away from the vehicle. You are not allowed to touch inventory without a representative present." The old man didn't move. He stood beside the gleaming midnight blue SUV as if he had all the time in the world, one hand resting lightly on his cane, the other on the chrome door handle. His coat was worn at the cuffs, the wool peeled from years of winters. His shoes were shined, but the leather was creased. He looked wildly out of place among the polished marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows where sunlight poured over six-figure cars. "I'm not hurting it," he said, voice low, steady. "Just looking." "You're making my wife uncomfortable," the client snapped. The client was a tall man in a tailored navy suit, pale face flushed with indignation. His wife, in a cream-colored coat, clutched her handbag closer as if the old man might snatch it. Behind them, their teenage son smirked into his phone, already filming. "I didn't say anything to you," the old man replied, still calm, eyes trained on the SUV's interior. "I asked a question about the service history on this model. That's all." "And I already told you," the sales manager barked. "This isn't the used lot. This is our premium line. You can't just wander in from the street and—" "From the street," someone near the reception desk whispered. He walked in like everyone else. A few heads turned. Customers at nearby desks, mid-negotiation over monthly payments and trade-in values, slowed their conversations. A young couple with a stroller went quiet. A woman in a red blazer behind the reception counter hesitated, phone in hand, eyes flickering between the confrontation and the glowing switchboard. Another phone went up. Then another. "Security is on the way," the manager announced, glancing toward the glass doors. "You can explain yourself to them. You don't belong in this section." The words hung in the air. "You don't belong." The old man's fingers flexed once on the cane's carved handle. The muscles in his jaw tightened and then relaxed. No one would have noticed unless they were very close. "I walked past 3 salespeople," he said softly. "No one greeted me. I waited at the front desk. No one came. So I took a look myself. That vehicle right there," he tapped the SUV's roof gently, "carries my name on the lease paperwork of half this city." The client snorted. "Sure it does." His wife gave a brittle laugh. The manager folded her arms. "We have a dress code expectation for customers in this area," she said, voice dropping into something meant to sound professional but laced with irritation. "It's a private lounge for scheduled appointments only, not—" "Not what?" A voice from the back called out. A young man in a faded hoodie, waiting near the service desk, raised his phone higher. "Not for him." A ripple of reactions. "Mind your business," the client snapped, turning toward the kid. "You don't know what's going on here." "I know you called security on a grandpa for touching a door handle," the kid said. "That's what's going on." The client turned back to the old man, his voice rising. "Look, I have an appointment. I'm about to drop $100,000 on a vehicle. You," he stabbed a finger in the air. "You're loitering. You're making people nervous. You keep staring at my wife. I don't know what your intentions are. So yeah, I called security." "You about to drop $100,000, the old man repeated, almost to himself. "You must be very proud." Laughter, strained and awkward, flickered around the room. Outside the glass doors, 2 uniformed security guards from the plaza approached with quick, purposeful strides. The automatic doors sighed open. Cold air rushed in. The old man didn't turn to look at them. He looked instead at a little girl sitting near the finance offices, feet swinging above the floor as she clutched a toy car. Her eyes were wide, taking it all in. Beside her, her mother chewed her lip, one arm wrapped tightly around the child's shoulders. A third phone went up, then a fourth. "Here we go," someone murmured. "Excuse me, sir," one of the security guards said as they reached the group. "We've had a report of a disturbance. We're going to have to ask you to come with us." "No, no, no," the client protested quickly. "You can escort him off the premises. We don't need a scene in front of my family." The manager nodded vigorously. "We've had issues before," she said to the guards. "People coming in off the street, bothering clients, pretending to be interested in cars they'll never be able to afford. We run a premium dealership here. I have to protect our brand. The words people like him hovered unspoken but heavy. The old man finally looked at the guards. His eyes were dark, tired, and much too sharp to miss any of this. "Do you want to search me?" he asked quietly. "Take my cane? Check my pockets for whatever crime you think I've brought into your showroom." The guards shifted, clearly uncomfortable. One looked at the manager, then the client, then the ring of cameras now circled around them. Comments were already popping up on a live stream. "They are really doing this to an old dude. What city is this? This is going viral. Tag the brand. I just need you to step outside with us," the taller guard said. "We can talk there." "And if I refuse?" the old man asked. The guard's jaw tightened. "Then we can call the police." The teenager filming from the front row whispered, "Oh damn," into his mic. The live chat exploded with angry emojis. The old man took a long, slow breath. He looked at the SUV again, at the perfect stitching on the leather seats, the custom wood trim. He personally signed off on the decor package for this showroom. He could see the echo of his own design choices reflected in the glass behind the manager's head. The brushed steel, the track lighting, the framed black and white portrait on the far wall showing a younger version of himself shaking hands with the mayor at the dealership's grand opening. The receptionist's eyes flicked to that photo, then to the man with the cane, then back again. Her mouth parted slightly. One of the guards prompted, "Do you want to press trespassing charges?" In the sudden hush, the manager's voice sounded too loud. "Yes," she said. "If he won't leave, yes. I do." A collective gasp rolled through the room. The old man nodded once, as if he'd been expecting this exact answer. "Before you do that," he said, reaching into his coat pocket, "there's something you should probably see." He didn't pull out a wallet. He didn't pull out ID. He pulled out something else, thin, matte black, glinting under the showroom lights, that made the receptionist at the front desk clap a hand over her mouth and whisper, "Oh my God." Because suddenly she knew. And in about 30 seconds, so would everyone else. That morning, just after sunrise, the same man stood at a window 20 stories above the city. From up here, the dealership looked like a toy set, rows of silver and white cars lined in geometric patterns, banners fluttering, the glass facade catching the tentative light of a winter sun. Beyond it, the freeway pulsed awake. The city exhaled plumes of breath into the cold. He held a steaming mug of black coffee in one hand, the cane in the other. The office behind him was wide and modern, all clean lines and soft leather and the faint hum of computers. Waking up, certificates and photos lined the walls, awards from the manufacturer, plaques from the Chamber of Commerce, portraits of employees gathered at barbecues and charity drives. In almost every framed photo, he stood somewhere near the edge, smiling. "Your 9 o'clock call to confirm again," his assistant said from the doorway. "They are very excited to meet you." He didn't turn. "Are they?" he said. "Yes," she said. "Though, I think they are more excited about the chance to take a selfie with you for their LinkedIn." He smiled faintly. "Sign of the times," he murmured. He had been in the business long before personal brand became a thing you could casually reference in a Monday memo. Long before everyone carried cameras in their pockets. Long before anyone cared enough about his face to point one at him. He sipped his coffee. On the window, his reflection stared back. An older black man with tightly curled gray hair cropped close to his head, deep lines at the corners of his eyes, a posture that still fought to stay straight despite the ache in his back. A dark wool suit hung on a frame more solid than frail, but slower these days. The cane had become less of an accessory, more of a necessity. The name etched onto the glass wall of his office read, Harold King, Chief Executive Officer, King Automotive Group. 14 dealerships across the metro area. 700 employees. A reputation for excellence that took 4 decades and more sleepless nights than he could count. "Do you have a minute?" his assistant asked cautiously. "For you? Always," he said, finally turning to face her. She stepped in, tablet in hand, brows knit. "I didn't want to bring this to you before your coffee," she said. "But it's concerning." Concerning was a word that made Harold's shoulders tense instinctively. He'd heard it in 1982 when the bank manager had said he was concerned about approving a small business loan for him. He'd heard it in 1993 when one of his stores burned in an electrical fire and the insurance adjuster had looked from the charred building to his skin to the forms in his hands and said he was concerned the policy might not cover everything. Concerned rarely meant good news. "What is it?" he asked. She tapped her tablet, then handed it to him. "We've had 3 customer complaints about the same location in the past month," she said. "Our flagship store, the one on Riverside." He took the tablet, eyes scanning the screen. Customer complaint form location, Riverside luxury auto subject, discrimination, unfair treatment. He read the first one, a middle-aged black couple describing how they'd stood in the showroom for 15 minutes without being greeted while staff fawned over another family. How? When they approached, they were asked twice if they were in the right place and whether they were there for service. How someone had gently steered them toward the used lot. He read the second complaint. An older woman, Latina, who'd come in alone and been told that pricing might be a bit high for you before she'd even asked for numbers. He read the third. A young black man who walked in wearing jeans and work boots, fresh off a night shift. He'd wanted to surprise his mother with a new car. The sales associate had asked him if he was dropping off an Uber Eats order and suggested he check out some more affordable options down the road. He'd left embarrassed and angry. Harold's jaw tightened. "We have diversity initiatives," his assistant rushed to add. "We do training. We have the code of conduct. And we." "Who runs Riverside now?" he asked quietly, eyes still on the screen. "Vanessa Ward," she said. "Promoted 2 years ago. Top performer. You gave her the award yourself at last year's holiday party. She's ambitious." He remembered Vanessa, sharp suits, sharper smile, a mind like a spreadsheet and a knack for closing deals. He liked her, still did, in principle. She got results. Numbers didn't lie, but numbers didn't tell the whole story either. "We've never had complaints about her before," he asked. "Nothing that escalated this far," his assistant said carefully. "Small things. A comment here or there. A sense from some staff that she only really rolls out the red carpet for certain kinds of customers." "Certain kinds," he repeated. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable. "You built this company to be different," she said. "You always say that. I just thought you'd want to see." He remembered the first car he'd sold. It had been in a tiny lot on the edge of town, barely more than a gravel patch with a trailer as an office. He'd opened it with a loan they'd said he'd never pay back. He'd sold that first car to a young teacher whose credit wasn't perfect but whose determination was. He'd stayed late to walk her through every term of the contract until she understood it completely. "I want people to leave here feeling respected," he'd told his first employee back then. "No matter what they look like, what they earn, what they drove in with." Decades later, that sentence sat on the company's website. On the wall outside his office, those words were engraved on a plaque. Now, 3 clicks on a screen told him that somewhere along the way, one of his flagship stores had started to forget. "I'm going down there today," Harold said suddenly. His assistant blinked. "To Riverside? I can call Vanessa in." "Don't call her," he said. "Don't tell anyone I'm coming." "Okay, but you have a full schedule today. The 9 o'clock, the lunch with the manufacturer rep, the—" "Reschedule," he said. "Tell them something came up." "Which is true." She hesitated. "Should I at least have your driver bring the car around?" He looked back out the window at the city, at the sunlight creeping over concrete and glass. "No," he said. "I'll take my own." He left his tailored coat on the back of his chair. He opened the closet and pulled out the older one, the wool soft from years of wear. He swapped his crisp white shirt for a faded checkered button-down. He moved his Rolex to the drawer and slipped on an old leather watch whose brand no one would recognize. The only thing that remained the same was the cane. His assistant watched him with a mixture of worry and curiosity. "Are you going undercover?" she asked, half joking. He gave her a look that said, "More than you know. I spent a lot of years being invisible in rooms I had every right to stand in," he said. "Might be time to put that skill to use again." She bit her lip. "You sure you want to do this? You could send HR, or the compliance team." "HR will get a tour," he said. "The compliance team will get a slideshow." He picked up his keys. "I want the truth." He thought of the complaints. Of the way the words, "I felt small," appeared in two of them. He knew that feeling. He'd worn it like a second skin for half his life. Now, with lines on his face and a title on the wall, he had power most people in that showroom didn't even know existed. But power didn't stop buildings from rotting at the foundation if you never went downstairs. He paused at the door of his office, hand on the handle. "Text me the manager's personnel file," he said, "and the last 6 months of customer satisfaction scores for that location." "Yes, sir," she said. "And one more thing," he added. "Pull the security camera footage. I want the unedited view of this store for the last 48 hours. She nodded, fingers already flying over her tablet. He stepped into the hallway, nodded to a few early arriving department heads, and made his way to the private elevator. As the doors slid shut, he caught a glimpse of his reflection again, an old black man going to visit a place that belonged to him. He wondered, not for the first time, how many people in that dealership would recognize the owner of the building if he walked in looking like he did right now. He suspected he already knew the answer. At the lobby level, he stepped out into the cold, breath puffing in front of him. Instead of the black Mercedes the driver usually brought around, he walked to the far corner of the underground garage where his favorite car sat quietly under a thin layer of dust, a 10-year-old sedan he'd kept more out of sentiment than necessity. He ran his hand over its hood, smiled, and slid behind the wheel. The engine turned over on the first try. As he pulled out into traffic, heading toward Riverside, the city around him surged and shifted. Billboards flashed with ads for luxury brands and streaming services. On a digital display above an intersection, a headline scrolled, "Local business leader speaks on equality in hiring." His own face, from a recent interview, flickered for a moment as he passed. No one on the street looked up. He pressed his foot gently on the gas, merging into the sea of cars, mind already at the showroom he was about to walk into. He thought of that first lot again, the gravel under his shoes, the hopeful face of that teacher signing her paperwork, the way it felt to hand her the keys and know he'd changed her life in some small way. He thought of what it would feel like to stand in his own flagship store and be treated like he didn't belong. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. If that was what was happening in his house, he intended to see it with his own eyes. And he had a feeling that by the time the sun set, he wouldn't be the only one seeing something new. By the time Harold pulled into the Riverside luxury auto lot, the sun was high and the showroom was already humming. Families browsed sedans. Young professionals in sleek clothes ran their hands over sports car curves. A billboard outside declared, "Rediscover luxury. Redefine your drive." He parked his old sedan in a space far from the glass front, where the asphalt had more cracks and fewer cameras. He lifted his cane, stepped out, and walked toward the entrance. He felt the familiar pull in his lower back, the stiffness in his knees. Age had taken its taxes, but it hadn't touched the way his eyes scanned the space automatically. Inventory mix, foot traffic, staff deployment, cleanliness of the lot. The place looked good. On the surface, he stepped through the revolving door into a wash of warm air and subtle background music. The scent of new leather and coffee drifted under bright lights. A large screen on the wall showed a looping slideshow of happy customers shaking hands with salespeople under balloons. No one greeted him. He stood just inside the entrance, waiting. A young salesperson leaned at a podium, scrolling on his phone. A pair of associates stood near the espresso machine, laughing with a well-dressed couple. A uniformed porter hustled past, juggling keys and paperwork. Harold watched the salesperson glance up, look straight at him, then glance away again. He took a step forward, then another. The receptionist looked up from her computer as he passed. Their eyes met. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again when her desk phone lit up. She reached for it, lips moving into her practice greeting. "Thank you for calling Riverside Luxury Auto. This is..." Harold moved further into the showroom. He walked past a row of gleaming sedans, past a couple arguing quietly about color options, past a salesman joking with a young man in designer sneakers. Each interaction carried a rhythm he knew by heart. The opening line, the qualifying questions, the subtle dance around budget and status. As he approached the raised platform where the premium SUV line sat, he noticed the subtle shift in decor. The carpet was thicker hay, the lighting softer. A champagne bar tucked against the far wall offered sparkling water and artisan snacks. A sign in elegant font read, "Private Lounge, Appointments Only." No one stopped him as he stepped onto the plush carpet. No one asked if he had an appointment, because no one was watching. At least, not yet. He had just reached the midnight blue SUV that had caught his eye when a voice, polished and slightly impatient, reached his ears. "Sir? Excuse me, sir." He turned. The sales manager approached, heels clicking, tablet in hand. Her suit was sharp, charcoal gray with a pinstripe, her hair pulled back in a precise chignon. The name tag on her lapel read, V. Ward, General Manager. There she is, he thought. "Can I help you?" she asked, smile tight. Her eyes flicked from his coat to his cane to the scuffed leather of his shoes. "I hope so," he said, resting his hand on the SUV's door handle. "I'm interested in this model. Wanted to see the interior." "This area is for scheduled appointments only," she said briskly. "Our premium clients. If you'd like to browse our inventory, someone on the floor can assist you with our more accessible options." Harold's gaze didn't leave her face. "Is this model not available to everyone?" he asked. She laughed lightly, a sound with no warmth in it. "This particular trim starts at $8,000 to $5,000, she said, lowering her voice as if sharing a private joke. "We've found that being realistic with customers about price saves everyone time. Our associates can show you something that's more in line with." "In line with what?" he asked. She blinked. "With what people generally expect to spend when they walk in without an appointment," she said. "If you had called ahead, of course, we could have." "I did call," he said. No one answered. She frowned. "We've been very busy." He nodded once. "That's a good problem to have," he said, "assuming you're busy with the right people." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if unsure whether he was complimenting or challenging her. "Now," she said, smile snapping back into place. "If you'll follow." "Babe, is this going to take long?" Another voice cut in. The client in the navy suit approached, wife on his arm, teenage son trailing behind with his phone out. They were led by a younger salesman whose name tag read M. Harris, sales consultant. "Of course not," Vanessa said, turning toward them with an instantly warmer expression. "Welcome back. We have your vehicle polished and ready. Just a few final details." The client's gaze slid over Harold like he was part of the decor. For a moment, Harold thought he might simply fade into the background again, as he'd done deliberately for so many years. Observe quietly. Take mental notes. Go back to the office with a clear picture of how his customers were being treated. Then the client's wife shifted closer to her husband, eyes narrowing. "Is he supposed to be back here?" she asked, voice pitched just loud enough to carry. And that was where everything began to go wrong. Now, back in the present, the wrongness had momentum. The security guards waited, watching Harold with professional neutrality that couldn't quite mask their discomfort. The manager stood rigid, arms crossed, determination making her jaw look sharper. The client hovered just behind her, trying to look like he wasn't in charge of this mess while clearly feeling like he was. "So, we can make this simple," the taller guard said again. "You can walk out with us, or we escalate." Harold's fingers closed around the object in his pocket. A thin rectangle, cool to the touch. "So, please," she whispered. "We can contain this." "We can." "Contain what?" Harold asked. "The truth." Her eyes glistened. "I've worked so hard for this position," she said, voice cracking. "I've hit every target. I've raised our numbers every quarter. I've sacrificed weekends, nights, vacations. I've done everything this company asked of me. And you're going to throw that away because of one misunderstanding. Is it just one?" Harold asked. "Or was it the first one that was loud enough to reach my office?" He thought of the complaints on his tablet that morning, of the words, "I didn't feel like I belonged there," typed by hands that had probably shaken a little as they did. He thought of his younger self being followed around lots he'd wanted to buy inventory from, treated as if his check would bounce before he ever took his wallet out. "I built this company so people wouldn't have to walk through our doors feeling the way I used to feel walking through theirs," he said quietly. He took a step closer to her. And I gave you the keys to my flagship store, he added. What did you do with that trust? Her shoulders sagged. She looked very small suddenly in her sharp suit. I was protecting the brand, she whispered. Harold's gaze moved deliberately to the phones, the live streams, the watching eyes. Look around, he said softly. Tell me if you still think you were. News travels faster than cars. By the time Harold retreated to a glass-walled conference room with HR, legal, and the internal communications team, the video of the confrontation had already hit 100,000 views. Clipped, captioned, and stitched, the moment the keycard appeared was replayed on loop with dramatic music, commentary, and text overlays like, "When you call security on the CEO and guess who owns the building?" Harold watched one clip on a subordinate's phone only because they insisted he see the scale of it. In it, he looked smaller than he felt, dwarfed by the SUV behind him, cane grounded, voice steady. The comments scrolled so fast he couldn't read them all, but certain words flashed bright. My dad went through this. This is every luxury place I've ever walked into. Respect to this man for staying calm. He set the phone down gently. I didn't come here to go viral, he said. No, sir, the head of HR said. But you have. We've gotten 3 media inquiries already, the communications director said. Laptop open. Local outlets, a regional business journal, and a national car blog that loves this kind of story. They are asking for a statement. If we don't respond, we look wise. Harold pinched the bridge of his nose. Through the glass wall, he could see the showroom continuing to buzz, albeit with a different energy. Some customers had left. Others stayed, leaning together in small clusters, whispering, glancing toward the office where the general manager now sat, pale and rigid, beside a lawyer. Let's handle our house first, Harold said. Then we'll talk to the neighbors. They spent the next hour going through security footage. Harold watched himself walk into his own dealership and become invisible. He watched the receptionist hesitate, torn between her script and what she'd been implicitly taught to prioritize. He watched Vanessa scan the room and glide past a black couple to greet a white family who'd just arrived, her smile several degrees brighter for them. He watched the pivot point, the moment the client's wife murmured something in Vanessa's ear, eyes flicking toward him, and Vanessa straightened, eyes sharpening. He watched the rest, his jaw clenched tight. This is not an isolated event, HR said quietly, pausing on a frame where Vanessa laughed with the client's son, ignoring 2 other customers waiting. We've reviewed 3 months of footage in fast forward. There's a pattern. She slid a printed report across the table. Complaints, staff feedback, exit interviews from employees who'd left the store citing a toxic environment and unspoken hierarchy of who matters. Harold stared at the word hierarchy for a long moment. Have we done anything about this before today? He asked. We had a coaching conversation with her last quarter, HR said, looking slightly ashamed. But the store's numbers were so strong. Management above me felt that performance outweighed behavior. Harold supplied. HR looked down. Yes, she said. The legal counsel cleared his throat. From a liability standpoint, he said, we should consider immediate action. Suspension at minimum while we investigate. Possibly termination if we confirm systemic bias that we failed to correct. The footage plus the viral video, it's not good. Not for us, not for her. Harold nodded slowly. He had 5 people before. He knew what it did to them, to their families. He also knew what not firing them did to everyone they touched. Bring her in, he said. Vanessa entered the conference room with a stiffness that had nothing to do with her heels. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. She sat when invited, hands clasped tightly on the table. Harold looked at her for a long moment. Do you know why we're here? He asked. She swallowed. Because I made a mistake, she said. A big one. But, I swear to you, it wasn't about race. I would have reacted the same way to any person who looked like they weren't supposed to be in the private lounge. Anyone, he asked, or anyone who looked like they couldn't afford it. She flinched. When you walked in, she said, you didn't look like our usual clients. You didn't check in. You didn't fit. We have people trying to film pranks. People trying to steal. Influencers staging content without buying. I thought you were one of them. So you called security, he said. I was protecting the brand, she insisted. We've talked so much about image, about protecting the feel of exclusivity. I thought that's what I was doing, making sure our clients feel safe. I didn't mean to insult you. If I had known who you were, I would have. That's exactly the problem, he said gently. She looked up, eyes brimmed with a plea. I've worked so hard, she whispered. I've hit every target. I've brought this store to #1 in the region. I've sacrificed so much. You told me once you saw yourself in me, that you recognized the hustle. He remembered saying that. He also remembered being followed around the first dealership he tried to buy inventory from, the owner's eyes crawling over his clothes, his hands, his face, his bank check, before reluctantly agreeing to a deal. He'd remembered thinking, if I ever own a place like this, I will not treat people like that. Ambition is a powerful engine, he said. It can take you somewhere beautiful, or it can run people over if you never check the mirrors. She swallowed hard. Are you firing me? She asked, voice small. He didn't answer immediately. This isn't about me, he said. It's about every person who walked into this building and felt lesser, who left and told their friends, that place isn't for people like us. That story spreads. It becomes our reputation. It rots the foundation. He leaned forward, the cane resting against his chair. I didn't come up from nothing, fight through decades of doors closing in my face, to build another door that shuts on people who look like me, he said. I won't let that stand. Not from you. Not from anyone. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks. I can change, she said. I can learn. I can. He believed her. He also believed that consequences were part of learning. Effective immediately. You're suspended, he said, with pay for the next 2 weeks while we complete a full investigation into the culture of this store. After that, we'll determine if there's a place for you here in a different capacity, with intense retraining. But you will not be general manager of this location anymore. She bowed her head as if something heavy had finally dropped on her shoulders. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I hope you are, he said. And I hope you'll be more than sorry. I hope you'll be different. She left the room in a daze. HR exhaled slowly. That was merciful, she said quietly. Mercy without accountability is just avoidance, Harold said. She's losing what she values most. That's a consequence. But I'm not interested in throwing people away when we can rebuild them. He looked at the legal counsel. Draft a statement, he said. We acknowledge what happened. We own it. We outline what we're doing about it. No spin. No excuses. Truth. The communications director nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard. And one more thing, Harold added. I'll make a statement on camera. Not as a CEO trying to put out a fire. As a black man who built this place and still got treated like he didn't belong in it. They all looked at him, startled. It'll make the story bigger, legal warned. It already is big, Harold said. At least this way, some good might come from it. He stood, cane in hand. Set up a camera in the showroom, he said. No script, no teleprompter, just me. He took a breath. And everyone who wants to listen. 2 hours later, the showroom looked different. Not physically. Cars still gleamed under spotlights. Sales desks still hummed. But the air carried a charged heaviness, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Harold stood in the center of the floor, microphone clipped to his collar, a camera crew from the internal communications team positioned discreetly nearby. Employees formed a loose semicircle around him. Some customers stayed, curiosity outweighing discomfort. Others watched from the edges. The video of the morning's confrontation had now hit 1 million views across platforms. Hashtags trended. Think pieces began to sprout. Some called him a hero. Some called him a fool for humiliating his own staff in public. Harold tried not to think about any of them. He thought instead of the little girl with the toy car who'd watched him almost be escorted out. He thought of the complaints on his tablet. He thought of his younger self, 26 years old, standing on a gravel lot with 20 cars and a dream bigger than his bank account. He cleared his throat. The room quieted. Most of you know me as a name on your paperwork, he began. On your paychecks. On the sign outside. Some of you have never seen me before today. Some of you saw me a few hours ago and didn't know it was me. A few uncomfortable chuckles. That's all right, he said, because today I wanted to know something about you. About us. He looked around the room, letting his gaze rest briefly on faces of every shade, every age. I built this company with the belief that buying a car should make you feel bigger, he said. Not because of the metal and the leather, but because of how you're treated. With respect, with patience, with dignity. He gestured around him. This building, these lights, these cars, they exist because thousands of people trusted us with their money, their time, their hope, he said. They walked in here vulnerable, maybe worried about their credit, maybe ashamed of the car they were driving, maybe scared of being taken advantage of, and they chose to trust us anyway. He paused. I know what that feels like, he said quietly. To walk into a place and feel eyes on you. To wonder if people are whispering. To feel like you're auditioning for the right to be there. He let the memory wash over him. The bank lobby 38 years ago. The suit that didn't quite fit. The way the teller had ignored him while rushing to greet the white man behind him. When I started, he said, I did business in places where I couldn't use the restroom. Where people called me boy while I wrote checks. Where security followed me when I walked the lot, even though I had more money in my account than the owner. He smiled faintly, with no humor. I told myself, he said, if I ever owned a place like this, I would do it differently. I would make sure no one ever felt small for daring to walk through my door. He tapped his cane gently on the floor. Today, I walked into my own dealership, he said, and I was made to feel like I didn't belong. A hush. I was ignored, he continued. Dismissed. Steered away from certain cars. And when I refused to shrink, someone called security on me. He let that sink in. I'm not angry that they didn't recognize me, he said. I'm not entitled to that. I'm angry because if this is how they treated the man whose name is on the building, how do they treat the people whose names will never be on a wall? The folks who can't pull out a keycard and stop the story midway through. A murmur of agreement. He looked at the employees. Some shifted uncomfortably. Some looked determined. Some looked close to tears. This is not just about one manager, he said. It's not just about one client, one incident, one viral video. This is about what we've allowed to grow in the shadows of our success. He gestured toward the cars. It's easy to roll out red carpets for people who look like money, he said. It's easy to smile at someone in a suit and offer them a bottle of sparkling water. It's easy to assume that the person in work boots or a worn coat is wasting our time. He shook his head. The measure of our character is how we treat the person we think can do nothing for us, he said. The one who doesn't look like our idea of premium. The one who makes us question our assumptions. He lifted his gaze to the camera. Bias is lazy, he said. It's a shortcut our brains take when we're tired or scared or focused on the wrong things. But lazy thinking leads to cruel actions. And cruelty, whether deliberate or casual, is not welcome in my house. His voice didn't rise, but it gained weight. We will fix this, he said. Not with a press release. Not with a quick training module everyone clicks through while eating lunch. We will fix it by doing the hard, daily, unglamorous work of changing how we see each other. He looked at his employees one by one. If you work here, he said, you are now part of that work. Starting today, we are reviewing every policy, every incentive, every metric that might reward you for treating one person as more valuable than another. We are listening to our customers. We are reading every complaint with the humility to ask, where did we fail? He paused, letting his words settle. And we will be honest when we find the answers, he said, even when they hurt. He took a breath. I'm not here to cancel anyone, he said. I'm here to call us up. To something better. To the standard I promised myself when this was just a dream and a gravel lot. He looked directly into the lens. If you've ever walked into one of our stores and felt ignored, belittled, or judged, he said, I am sorry. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm asking for another chance to earn your trust. He softened. Dignity is not a luxury feature, he said. It's standard equipment. Or it should be. A faint ripple of nervous laughter. Then nods. He tapped his cane once more. We'll be judged by more than our sales numbers this quarter, he said. We'll be judged by how we respond to this moment, by whether we choose defensiveness or growth, by whether we protect our comfort or the people we say we save. He exhaled. I intend for us to grow, he said simply. He lowered the microphone. For a heartbeat, the showroom was utterly silent. Then someone began to clap. Slowly at first, then louder. Others joined, some unsure, some wholehearted. The sound rolled over them, not triumphant but determined. Harold didn't bask in it. He just stood in the middle of it, an old man with a cane, eyes shining with something that wasn't quite pride and wasn't quite sorrow but lived in the space between. The consequences arrived in waves, not all at once. Within 24 hours, the company's official statement appeared across their website and social channels. It didn't mince words. It acknowledged bias. It acknowledged harm. It acknowledged the gap between values on a plaque and behavior on a showroom floor. The clip of Harold's speech was posted in full. No edits. No spin. It was shared widely. Some commenters praised the transparency. Others accused it of being damage control. A few called for boycotts. Many, especially black and brown customers, shared their own stories of walking into dealerships and feeling small. The manufacturer reached out, alarmed. Is this going to hurt the brand? Their regional rep asked over video call. It already has, Harold said. We're just telling the truth about it now. Stock in the manufacturer dipped slightly as the story rippled through business news segments. Analysts speculated about the impact on luxury sales. A morning show panel discussed bias in upscale retail spaces, using edited clips from the video. Internally, Harold's team launched an audit of all 14 dealerships. They sent anonymous surveys to employees. They combed through complaint logs. They listened to recorded calls where customers complained of being talked down to, of being offered worse rates than their credit deserved, of being told maybe this isn't the right car for you in tones that carried more meaning than the word suggested. It wasn't pretty. It was honest. Several managers across the group were quietly counseled, then loudly retrained. One was let go after repeated incidents and an unwillingness to change. Vanessa, suspended at home, watched the news segments in a daze. She saw her own blurry figure in the viral video, voice raised, jaw tight. She scrolled through comments that didn't know her name but knew her type. Every dealership has a manager like this. Protect the brand, but not the people. Maybe losing that job will teach her something. She closed the app, heart hammering. For the first time in years, she had nothing to sell, nothing to prove in the moment. She had only herself and the echo of Harold's words in her living room. Ambition is a powerful engine. She thought about what she had run over in her race to the top. She wrote a long email to HR, unprompted, detailing every instance she could remember where her snap judgment had likely hurt someone. She offered to sit in the back of every training session, to listen more than she spoke. I don't expect my job back, she wrote. But I don't want to be this person anymore. Even if I never work for you again, I need to be different. Harold read the email late one night. He closed his eyes and saw the younger version of himself standing outside the bank. He wondered who he might have become if the world had only ever affirmed his worst instincts instead of forcing him, through pain, to examine them. He forwarded the note to HR. Let's talk about what restorative justice could look like, he wrote. Outside the company, the client who had called security woke up to a different kind of fallout. His friends texted links. His colleagues shared the video in group chats. His teenage son wouldn't meet his eyes at breakfast. At least your name isn't out there, his wife said, trying to sound soothing. He scrolled through the clip anyway, watching himself on screen. Finger pointed, voice sharp, demanding. He saw his own face as Harold asked, "Would you have done that if I looked like you?" He didn't like what he saw. At work, a junior associate slipped a stack of papers onto his desk. "What's this?" he asked. "An article," the young man said, eyes steady, "about bias in customer service. I thought you might want to read it. After everything." The implication hung in the air. For the first time in his life, the client realized people were questioning his judgment in a way that didn't immediately cave under his money or status. He scheduled a meeting with Harold. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, sitting stiffly in Harold's office a week later. But I needed to say this to your face. I was wrong. I reacted out of fear I never examined. You didn't do anything to deserve that. And my son, he saw me be that man. Harold studied him. Who do you want him to see now? He asked. The man swallowed. Someone who learns, he said. Someone who changes behavior instead of just apologizing. Then start there, Harold said. With him. With how you treat the next person you feel uneasy around. That will mean more than anything you can donate or post online. Still, when the man later asked if he could contribute to the company's new customer equality initiative, Harold didn't refuse. If your money can help fix a problem you helped highlight, he said, that's not penance. That's participation. They shook hands. The teenager, standing awkwardly in the doorway, filmed it, this time not for the internet, but for himself. Maybe I'll show my kids one day, he muttered. Tell them, my dad messed up, but he tried. As the weeks passed, the initial noise faded. The story moved off the front page, then off the second, then into the archives where everything eventually goes. The internet found new outrages, new mishaps, new footage to compare and caption. The dealership remained. Inside its glass walls, real changes took root. Every new hire, from salesperson to porter, attended an intensive orientation not just about products, but about people. They role-played scenarios where a customer didn't look the part and practiced responses grounded in respect. They watched portions of the viral video, not to shame, but to learn. Harold visited each store. He walked the floor. He listened. He asked customers, quietly, how they felt. Not just about the price, but about the way someone had greeted them. Whether anyone had assumed they were in the wrong place. He made sure complaints didn't just get logged, but read. By him. Some employees grumbled. We're overcorrecting, one said. People are too sensitive now. Harold caught wind of it. He called a meeting. Do you know what overcorrecting looks like? He asked them. It looks like not firing anyone when they hurt people. That's not what we're doing. He gave them numbers. Customer satisfaction scores rose. Referrals increased. People posted positive stories online about being treated with warmth and respect, regardless of whether they left in a new car or their old one. It's funny, he told his assistant one afternoon, gazing out at the lot from his office window again. Treating people well is good ethics and good business. Always has been. I think sometimes people forget the first part and only chase the second, she said. He nodded. Not on my watch, he replied. Several months later, spring sunlight poured through the Riverside showroom windows. The banners outside had been updated with a new slogan, one Harold personally approved. Everyone's welcome, hey. No exceptions. Inside, the layout looked subtly different. The private lounge, appointments only sign was gone. In its place, a small plaque on the wall read, You belong here, whether you're buying today, tomorrow, or just dreaming. The champagne bar still existed, but now it sat across from a kid's corner where children could play with toy cars and draw while their parents talked numbers. A display of framed testimonials from customers lined one wall. Stories of being treated kindly even when they were just looking, of staff going above and beyond for people whose budgets had limits. Harold walked in, cane tapping lightly on the new runner rug. This time, he didn't go unnoticed. Good morning, sir, the receptionist said quickly, rising to greet him with a genuine smile. Welcome back. Do you need any assistance today? Just taking a look, he said. Don't mind me. Everyone minds you, a voice joked. He turned to see his new Riverside general manager approaching. A black woman in her 40s with salt beginning at her temples and eyes that carried a mix of warmth and no-nonsense steel. She'd been promoted from another store after consistently high customer satisfaction scores. Lena, he greeted. How are we doing? She walked beside him, matching his pace. Last month's numbers were solid, she said. But more importantly, our feedback is different. People mention feeling welcome 3 times more than they did before. We've had customers drive past other dealers just to come here because of the video. The video? He asked, wincing. She smiled. They call this the place where the CEO showed up, she said. Feels like a haunted house. Except we're haunted by conscience. He huffed a laugh. I can live with that, he said. They paused near the premium SUV display. A young couple stood by the midnight blue model, dressed in simple clothes, she in a uniform from a supermarket, he in paint-splattered work pants. They looked at the price tag with wide eyes, clearly thinking it might be more than a dream. A salesperson approached them, posture open. Beautiful choice, he said. What brings you in today? We're just looking, the woman said quickly. We probably can't. You're here, the salesperson said. That's enough to start. Let's talk about what you need. We'll see what fits, whether it's this one today, something else, or a plan for later. Harold watched their shoulders visibly drop, tension easing. See that? Lena said softly. That's the thing. We might still not sell them this car today, but they'll remember how they felt standing next to it. They'll tell other people. They might come back when it's their time. Harold nodded. This is what I wanted, he said. Not just to sell luxury, but to redefine what luxury means. It's not the price tag. It's the experience of being treated like you matter. He turned to Lena. How are the staff handling the changes? He asked. She shrugged. Most of them have adapted well, she said. A few left when they realized they couldn't lean on old habits. They were the ones who saw premium as a pedestal instead of a standard of care. And Vanessa, he asked quietly. Lena glanced toward the service area. She's in training, she said, shadowing at another location, working with a coach. It's humbling her. Does she resent it? He asked. She did, Lena said. At first. Now, I think she's starting to see what she couldn't when she was winning on numbers alone. Harold looked out across the showroom. He spotted a familiar face. The teenager from that day, older now by a haircut and a more confident stance, stood near the entrance, wearing a polo embroidered with a dealership logo and a name tag. He welcomed a middle-aged black couple with a broad smile, gesturing them inside. He applied for a job after the whole thing blew up, Lena said, noticing Harold's gaze. Said he'd never realized he could work somewhere like this until he saw you stand up there. Harold watched the young man show the couple around, explaining features with enthusiasm but no pressure. The couple laughed, relaxed, asking questions freely. Is good, Harold said. He cares, Lena replied. You can't teach that. You can only protect it. Harold walked a little farther into the showroom, stopping near the spot where he'd stood when the manager had called security. He could almost see the ghost of himself there, hand on the cane, the ring of phones, the faces tight with tension. He could taste the metallic tang of humiliation, the cold clarity of resolve. He tapped his cane lightly on the floor. The sound was softer on the new rug. Do you regret it? Lena asked quietly. Letting it go public like that. Letting the whole world watch your house get messy. He thought for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary, he said. I don't regret letting light in. Mold grows in the dark. Sometimes you have to turn on all the lamps and see what's living in the corners. She smiled wryly. And now, she asked. Still seeing mold? Less, he said, but I'll keep checking. Later that day, in his office, he watched a short documentary a local filmmaker had put together about the incident and its aftermath. It intercut footage of the viral video, interviews with customers, snapshots of training sessions, and his own speech. It ended on his face, lined and tired, eyes still burning with purpose. Below the video, comments rolled on. Some cynical, some moved. One, from a user with a simple profile picture of an old sedan, caught his eye. I'm not surprised this happened, it read. I'm surprised the man in charge didn't pretend it didn't. That gives me a little hope. Harold leaned back in his chair. He thought of hope, of how fragile it was, of how powerful, if nurtured. He closed the laptop and stood, looking again at the city below. The dealerships glinted like small, controlled galaxies, each with its own gravity, its own orbit. He knew he wouldn't be in this office forever. One day, someone else's name would be on the glass. But if he did his job right, the values would remain etched deeper than any plaque. He straightened his shoulders. He picked up his cane. He went back to work. Before he left that evening, he walked one last time through the nearly empty showroom. Twilight painted the cars in shades of blue and gold. The cleaning crew moved quietly, wiping fingerprints off windows, that daily ritual of erasing smudges, making things clear again. He paused by the entrance. The security guard on duty, a different one than that day, nodded respectfully. "Good night, Mr. King," he said. "Good night," Harold replied. He hesitated, then turned to the guard. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course," the guard replied. "If an old man walks in off the street," Harold said, "coat worn, shoes scuffed, maybe a little lost, what do you do?" The guard didn't have to think long. "I say, 'Welcome in, sir,'" he said. "Then I ask how I can help." Harold smiled. "Hold on to that," he said. Outside, the air was cool and clean. The neon sign hummed softly above him, bathing the lot in pale light. He made his way toward his car, cane tapping a quiet rhythm. The question had followed him for months now, tangling itself into every conversation, every meeting, every policy. What kind of place are we building? Not just in business, in classrooms, at front desks, on sidewalks, in our own minds. He knew the answer would never be finished. It would always be in motion, as long as people were. He opened his car door, paused, and looked back once more at the dealership. Through the glass, he could see people laughing, talking, finishing paperwork, running numbers, sweeping floors. 1,000 small interactions, each one an opportunity to make someone feel either smaller or seen. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out onto the road. As the city lights flickered past, he thought of the moment months earlier when he'd stood in that same showroom and asked a man if he would have called security if Harold had looked like him. He wondered how many people had quietly asked themselves the same question since, and how many had changed because of the answer. The sky above was deepening into night, but the streets were still full of cars, of people, of stories colliding and ricocheting in ways no camera would ever fully capture. Harold gripped the wheel, eyes on the road, mind on the bigger journey. He couldn't control the world. He could barely control his own company. But he could choose, every day, which direction he turned his own wheel. He chose, again, to steer toward dignity, toward accountability, toward kindness that wasn't cheap or easy, but costly and real. The kind that might, if enough people chose it, change the temperature of a room before anyone had to pull out a keycard and remind the world who they were. And now, with the image of an old man standing calm in a circle of suspicion still fresh in your mind, a question waits quietly for you. If someone walked into your space tomorrow, your workplace, your store, your office, your online feed, dressed below your expectations, speaking in a way you don't usually hear, carrying the wrong kind of bag, skin, accent, or story, what would you see first? The risk or the human being? You may never own a company. You may never trend on a hashtag, but you own your reactions. You own your assumptions. You own the moments when you decide who belongs and who doesn't. So before you scroll on, before you forget this, take a breath and ask yourself, if a camera were pointed at you in that moment, would you be proud of what it recorded? If the answer is no, or not yet, what one small thing will you do differently the next time someone unexpected walks through your door? The story's still being written. Part of it, whether you realize it or not, is in your hands.